You're watching Euronews now. I'm Donbas with your top stories. Russian forces have reportedly made marginal gains as they step up their attacks on Ukraine's eastern Donbas region.
And the city of Dnipro in eastern Ukraine is very much under high alert. From here, I've been speaking to soldiers who describe what kind of help they need to win this war.
We will, hand in hand, help Ukraine rise from the ashes.
And as Ukraine dominates discussions at Davos, we'll bring you the latest on what's being said at the World Economic Forum.
The Ukrainian army is having an increasingly difficult time in Donbas. The eastern region concentrates all the efforts of the Russian army, and despite their little progress, heavy fighting continues with incessant shelling. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the next weeks of war will be difficult and there is no alternative but to fight.
The most difficult situation is in the Donbas. Bakhmut, Popasna, Severodonetsk. The occupiers are most active in these directions. They created a slaughter, and they seek to eliminate everything that's alive. No one has destroyed the Donbas like the Russian troops are doing right now.
In response to Ukraine's insistence on asking its allies for more weapons, the US said it will give Ukraine military assistance until the end and announced that 20 countries will offer new security assistance packages including artillery ammunition, coastal defense systems and tanks.
In a short 4 weeks since the contact group convened at Ramstein, the momentum of donations and deliveries has been outstanding. And after today's discussions, I'm pleased to report that we're intensifying our efforts.
New satellite photos of the Crimean port of Sevastopol appear to prove Zelensky's accusations of the progressive theft of grain from Ukraine. Kyiv is discussing with officials from the European Union, the UK, Turkey and the UN the establishment of a corridor which would allow exports of Ukrainian wheat, sunflowers and other grains.
The World Food Programme is warning of catastrophic failure in food supply chains caused by Russia's blockade of Ukrainian Black Sea ports. The besieged country is the world's granary, but now ships can't get out of the ports. Speaking at the Quad Summit with the leaders of Japan, Australia and India, the US President said the war is a global issue.
The global food crisis is made worse by Russia's blocking Ukraine from exporting its millions of tons of grain. And also, as long as Russia continues the war, the United States will work with our partners to help lead a global response because it's going to affect all parts of the world.
Britain is in discussion with allies about sending warships to the Black Sea to protect freighters carrying Ukrainian grain and establish a protective corridor in what it called a coalition of the willing. But there are fears that time is running out to avert a world food crisis.
25 million tons of grain and oilseeds left in Ukraine. That's the third of last year's harvest. So we already have a huge logistical problem. So it's already late. It's already too late. But the only option is to get the grain out of Ukraine is through the Black Sea ports. They have to be opened.
Ukraine and Russia together export a third of the world's wheat and barley and half of its sunflower oil, while Russia is also a top supplier of fertilizer that surged in price. If the situation continues, experts are warning of starvation and instability.
Russian soldier Vadim Shishimari has been sentenced to life in prison for killing a civilian in the initial days of the invasion of Ukraine. It was the first war crimes trial to be held in the war-torn country since Russia's assault began 3 months ago. While the 21-year-old showed no emotion when the verdict was read out, his lawyer maintained the sergeant initially refused to follow orders to shoot the victim and had never intended to kill 62-year-old Alexander Shiripov.
Well, first of all, the verdict has not yet entered into force. The fact that I'm preparing to file an appeal means I believe that it was passed with violations.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov wasn't so optimistic. The defendant admits he shot Sharipov, but says he had asked his widow to forgive him.
Unconditionally, we are concerned about the fate of our citizen. But I repeat once again that, unfortunately, we don't have the possibility to protect his interests at the place. Practically, there is no activity of overseas agencies. However, it doesn't mean we won't consider the possibility to continue attempts through other means.
The Kremlin has repeatedly denied allegations that Vladimir Putin's troops have targeted civilians and committed war crimes on Ukrainian soil. But officials in Kyiv say some 11,000 crimes have taken place since the assault began. The pro-Russian leader of Donetsk says several hundred Azov-style defenders will be tried in the separatist region.
President Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the Kremlin was worried about the Russian soldier Vadim Shishimarin, who was sentenced to life in prison in Ukraine. He stressed that Russia did not have any institutions in the country to, quote, help him. Peskov, however, added that it did not mean that Russia would not use other channels. Dmitry Peskov also said that Russia is not considering an exchange of Azovstal steel plant soldiers for Viktor Medvedchuk, who is now under arrest in Ukraine. Mr. Medvedchuk, one of Ukraine's richest men, has been a leader of a pro-Russian party in Ukraine for years and is known as someone who has really close ties with Vladimir Putin. But the question whether Russia is considering the exchange of soldiers from Azovstal steel plant at all remains up in the air. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Andrei Rudenko said that Moscow was not ruling out such a possibility, but at the same time, the head of the self-proclaimed pro-Russian Donetsk separatist republic, Denis Pushilin, told Russian media that all the soldiers from the Azovstal will face an international tribunal, and he added that they are all being held on the republic's territory. And on Thursday, the Russian Supreme Court will take a decision on the request to label the Azov Regiment a terrorist organization. If it happens, this would make any possible exchange even more difficult to achieve. Galina Polunskaya, Euronews from Paris.
McDonald's was once the sign of the Soviet Union opening up to the world. Its recently announced departure from Russia is a symbol of another path. The war is affecting Russia commercially, not just in the international markets, but also at home. Many shopping centres feel like ghost towns, as big international retailers have also decided to leave the country.
If you walk around shopping malls in Moscow, you can see that many kind of fashion stores, Western branded stores, have simply pulled down the shutters. Their shelves are still full, the lights are still on, they're simply just not open. So they haven't pulled out yet. They're waiting to see what happens next.
The rout has also extended to industry. Despite having large investments in the country, Renault has also decided to leave Russia. The government of the Moscow city region has now acquired their factory.
We see deterioration in the economy now across a broad range of sectors. Companies are warning that they're running out of inventories of spare parts. A lot of companies have put their workers on part-time work, and others are warning that they may have to shut down entirely. So there's a real fear that unemployment will rise during the summer months, that there will be a big drop in consumption, in retail sales and investment.
Russia's currency, the ruble, has recovered most of the value it lost since the war began. Still, Moscow is facing a large recession as international sanctions bite, and as the exodus of international firms becomes cemented.
Time for us to take a little break on the programme, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a few moments.